Hi, and welcome to Hope for the Family, a podcast from the Magdalen House, a recovery community for alcoholic women. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Dallas, Texas, and known affectionately by many as Maggies. In this series, recovered family members from our community share how they've been able to find peace and freedom as the loved ones of alcoholics, with your host, me, Laurie Evans, also a loved one of an alcoholic. For more information about our family support group, including weekly meetings, please visit magdalenhouse.org/family. We are so glad you're here, and thanks for listening. Hello, everyone. My name is Laurie Evans, and I am the host for the Hope for the Family podcast. And I'm so excited today because I have Judy Cogan and Charlotte Cogan with me. They are both recovered. Judy is Charlotte's mom, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves really quickly. Judy, you want to go first?
My name is Judy Cogan, and I am very blessed to have Charlotte as my daughter. We moved here from Massachusetts in 2014, and it was in 2015 when I became a part of family support.
Wow, welcome. Charlotte, welcome. How are you today?
Hi, I'm Charlotte. I am a recovering alcoholic. And I am also really grateful to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're really glad you're here. So our podcast today is very special since we have these two on there, and we're focusing on the relationship between a family member that's recovered and an alcoholic that is recovered. And I'm going to start and ask you both. I'm going to start with you, Charlotte. How did you get connected with the Maggie's House?
It was a long time ago, and my timeline's a little fuzzy. I think it was 2015 or 2016. I was really struggling, and I was guided in the direction of Maggie's house. And I was there for 2 weeks, and I wasn't ready at the time, and it would be quite a few years till I found continuous sobriety after that. But in reflecting on my journey and everything, it is true that at every place that I've been at treatment, everyone who has, reached out a hand and tried to help me, it has all planted a seed. And I definitely have had a lot of seeds planted at Maggie's house. So whether I realized it at the time or not, my experience with Maggie's house was a part collectively of my journey and me finding recovery.
Oh, wow. That is awesome, Charlotte. And Judy, how did you get connected with the Maggie's house?
I became connected specifically with family support when Charlotte became a client in the house in the summer of 2015. At that time, I was really struggling myself. I was baffled by her drinking. I was full of fear and really didn't know what to do or where to turn. I had heard about the Magdalen House. I gave them a call. One of the staff people recommended that I speak to a woman from family support. And I spoke to her, and she invited me to a meeting in 2015, and I have never left. And I've been a part of family support now for 8 years.
We're so lucky to have you. I know that, like I said in this podcast, we're focusing on, the recovered part of you through the 12 steps as well as Charlotte. And the thing is, it's like, can you talk a little bit more about what it looks like you going through the steps and how that came about?
Sure. So one of the first recommendations that I received through the Magdalen House Family Support was to get a copy of the book, Alcoholics Anonymous, and to read that book twice. To first read it from the perspective of the alcoholic and learn about what alcoholism is and what it isn't, and learn about the disease. And from reading that book, and it was years that I was overwhelmed by the disease. No one before had ever suggested that to me. I was very, very grateful to that suggestion, and it was where I garnered empathy for what Charlotte was experiencing. And then it was suggested that I also read it from my perspective and replace alcoholic with control freak or obsessor. And when I did that, I recognized that I was caught up in my own circle of despair. And as Charlotte disease progressed, I was also becoming much, much sicker myself. Through family support, they taught me better ways to respond to the drinking and also suggested that I get a sponsor and work the 12 steps. And it was through working with a marvelous sponsor that was really tough on me, which is what I needed, and held a mirror in front of me. And instead of looking always at Charlotte, to look at myself and to address my words and actions, my behaviors, my manipulation, my dishonesty. It was very revealing to have worked those steps and to recognize that I needed help and I needed to change me, not focus on changing Charlotte. That I, not being alcoholic, did not have the depth and weight. And I was not the appropriate person to be trying to fix my daughter. I needed to focus on myself and get out of the way and allow her to connect with the appropriate people that could show her a way through.
Wow, Judy, that's great. And Charlotte, how did you feel when your mom was going through the steps, and how did that change you or your journey or anything like that?
I noticed a definite change when I was in Portland, sober living. There was a period of time where we had some distance from each other. At the time when I had actually gone to Portland for sober living, we were having more communication. It was evident that there was something different. And it took a little bit for me to trust that, but the effect on my recovery was really powerful, because my mom started her steps and going to meetings and working with a sponsor kind of before I did it from my end. So without my mom even vocalizing it to me or suggesting it or prompting me or anything, I was seeing my mom's actions and hearing about what she was doing. So in an indirect way, it was like, wow, it was really powerful. And I saw a change, and my relationship with my mom looks like today is very, very different. I am no longer afraid to call my mom and tell her stuff. I'm, not afraid of the reactions. I'm not afraid of the judgment. It's very, very, very different. I am really, really grateful to my mom for I'm sorry, I'm going to get
okay.
Emotional.
I am too. It's okay.
It's it was really, really, really powerful. And even as sick as I was at the time, I couldn't really put the dialogue to it, but seeing how my mom has changed and how she's this safe person I could go to now and feel empowered by and supported in me helping myself is something that is just extremely powerful and something I'm very grateful for. So if any parents or loved ones are listening to this and wondering how to help their loved one, my mom doing what she did and demonstrating through her actions the humility and the discipline for ask for help and to do the work was inspiring to me and put me in a position of humility where I could no longer be you don't know what it's like to have to work a program every day for the, well, yeah, she does, and she does do it. I can't really put words to it, but it was one of the greatest gifts my mom has ever given to me.
Wow. That's awesome, Charlotte. I remember when my partner went through Maggie's, when I picked her up, her sponsor said to me, now look, if she wants to drink, you drive her to the liquor store. And I was like, golly, this lady is crazy. I really think we've just spent these 2 weeks getting her sober. I'm not going to let her drink again. And I was really controlling and really like on top of like making sure that she stayed sober. And I remember about 2 or 3 months into it, she said, if you just back up just a little bit, you might get to see a miracle. And I did, because she said so. And I hadn't gone through the steps yet at that point, but I did. I did get to see a miracle happen in my house, and that's what made me decide to go through the steps myself, because I saw and I wanted what she had. And so it kind of sounds like it's the exact opposite, here, like you were excited for your mom and, proud, but they do play off each other, and it does help, relationships. So that's great to hear. Judy, did you have anything to add to that?
Yes, we talk in family support about untangling ourselves from the problem. One time in family support, a recovered alcoholic had said when her mom had actually started to get help for herself, that she suddenly felt like she had agency over her own recovery journey. And I think that is possibly what may have been one of the gifts of my getting help for myself, is allowing Charlotte to just live her life the way she chose. Whatever consequences occurred, there were lessons that were hers to learn, and to just trust the process and stay out of the way, giving her agency over it, versus I thinking as a mother that I had the power to fix this, that it was my job to fix it. It took years to convince me it wasn't my job. I wanted to cling on to that job I thought it was, but it took the 12 steps and my sponsor and continuing to work this program to allow Charlotte to be the wonderful adult that she is, and to own her journey and to own her successes and whatever lessons she might learn. But I needed to get out of the way, and I was really served through family support and the 12 steps in doing so.
That's awesome, Judy. I know one of the things we say in family support, and we've got new people coming in that have girls in the house, or, it's either their daughter, their girlfriend, their wife, their sister, and these people are scared, and they look a lot like Judy looked when she came in for the first time, just really scared. And one of the things we always say is, when the next time you talk to them, tell them that you trust them and that they've got this. And they always look at us like, how do we do that? But if you start believing it yourself and saying it for yourself, and actually at that point, it's hard to get someone to go, to think about going through the 12 steps at that point. But we're kind of, like you said, Charlotte, planting a seed. Where we're like, well, we can help you with that when you're ready, kind of thing. So that's one of the things that Judy and I, talk about in our family support group. So my next question is about relapse. And we all know, because we've studied the big book, and it just says it several times in the big book, that relapse can be a part of recovery. And I think you talked a little bit about the seed that we just talked about. So once you were recovered, Judy, and you've gone through the steps, and Charlotte experienced a relapse. What did that look like, and how did you deal with that?
I'm thinking specifically of a particular relapse that happened after some 30-day treatment programs in Texas. And at that time, I was working the steps. I had this wonderful sponsor who could hold my hand.
After she was mean to you, then she'd held your hand.
Yeah. And
we have the same sponsor. I can laugh.
And initially, I think any mother will have a sadness. But because I had worked the 12 steps and I had support, and I understood the disease, and I understood in that moment, it was crystal clear to me in that moment of that relapse, of my powerlessness over the disease. It was crystal clear to me. I was able to navigate what transpired afterwards, focusing on faith, that she was going to be okay and I was going to be okay, instead of remaining stuck in fear. I lived my life always in this fear mode, And that fear-based behavior was driving my reactions and driving my words and driving my behaviors. But through the 12 steps, I was able to make a shift from fear to faith and just cling to faith. And I had to do that hourly, daily, weekly. I had to keep shifting from fear to faith. I had to allow the journey to continue to unfold without starting to insert myself again.
That's awesome, Judy. I think I might have been there for that, and I got to witness some of that, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful to watch and use you for an example, because a lot of times that's when the family members come in here, that's one of their biggest fears. And they always look at us like we're crazy when we tell them, it's okay, it can be a part of recovery, and they're going to come back stronger, but they don't want to hear that. They want to know how to keep them from drinking, and it's hard to explain that your higher power has a plan, their higher power has a plan, and we have to trust it. And they're not wanting to hear that at the time when we're talking to them. But we keep, planting the seeds and keep going and do everything we can to let them know we're there for them.
I have to add that at that moment, Charlotte was very sick, and I'm sure that Charlotte has a perspective that is her perspective completely on that experience at that time. I imagine it was very difficult.
Well, that's where we're going next, Judy. Thanks for that tea up there.
Are you a loved one of an alcoholic? Our family support group serves as a community for friends, loved ones, and family members of alcoholics to learn about alcoholism, understand how to help an alcoholic, and experience an improved quality of life, regardless of the alcoholic's recovery. We have weekly support meetings that meet virtually and in person, as well as a monthly speaker meeting. To find out more about our family support group, visit magdalenhouse.org/family.
So, Charlotte, you want to talk about, and if you want to talk about that particular one, that would be.
I was going to talk about it generally, but I can respond to that directly too, because that was an extreme moment of powerlessness to me. Before that 30-day program, I was at a 30-day program. I stayed there for 60 days. I was in a psych hospital. Then I went to another 30-day program. When I was in the psych hospital, I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know if they were going to send me to another program. I didn't know if they would send me to the streets. I didn't know where I was. The ambulance ride from the first treatment center was hours long. I didn't know where I was. It was really, really, really scary. And I was so afraid of being released and not having anywhere to stay. And thankfully, I got into another 30-day program. And I got on my knees when I was there, and I thanked God. I was so grateful. And for the next 30 days, I worked through that program, fear-driven, of like, oh gosh, like I have to make it through this program. I have to get into a sober house. I'm so scared. Like I don't have anywhere to go if I mess this up. I don't want to be homeless. All this fear. I was terrified. And on the way from the treatment center to the sober house, I picked up a bottle of wine and drank that night. I did not plan it. I went to CVS to pick up some shampoo. Like a lot of my relapses are like that actually. And it's like really mind-blowing to reflect on it and be like, here I am so scared of relapse and like the consequences of it. And when that switch goes off, it's complete powerlessness, complete tunnel vision. Reflecting on that just speaks volumes to that. And like in the general sense, I was an active alcoholic for like a little over 10 years, relapsed many, many, many times. I don't remember a single relapse that I planned. It all happened in a matter of minutes. The moment the obsession came, it was tunnel vision. One of the biggest barriers to me getting into recovery is that when the obsession wasn't there, it was baffling to even me why I would ever drink again. I would be sitting in detox, like, I'm never going to do this again. Like, that was terrifying. I need to get my life together. I'm miserable. Like, I don't want to live. Like, I have to, all the things. So that when the tunnel vision wasn't there and I didn't have the obsession, I didn't have the humility to recognize my total powerlessness to actually do the hard work necessary to be able to combat that obsession when it comes. I am grateful now for all of my relapses, especially one that I had after 2.5 years of sobriety. Never thought I would say that, but I am grateful for that relapse because it brought me to where I am now.
Can you talk a little bit about how that happened at 2.5 years? Like how did that happen?
Well, I was managing a sober house. I was having a really hard time admitting that I was not taking care of myself while doing the management piece. My ego and my pride kind of wasn't letting me recognize that. It was a hot mess. There was a lot of insanity, even though I didn't drink alcohol or do my usual drugs of choice. There was like a whole lot of insanity in there, a whole lot of addiction in there, and just like my behaviors and what I was doing with the substances available to me. I got kicked out of that sober house. By the grace of God, I got into another house and I had like $400. The thought crossed my mind, like, oh, I have like this money. I could probably like go to a hotel room and actually, relapse for real. Like, it took me like about 72 hours to like come to terms with the fact that I had relapsed. But I was like, relapse for real? No one's gonna, I have to start the steps over anyways. I have to make the phone call to my parents anyways. And thank God, like, that thought came and I was on the phone with the house director of the house I am now, and for some reason the words out of my mouth were just, yes, like, come pick me up. I want a bed. I'll do anything. And so that was a God moment for me because there was just enough still in my brain that I was able to kind of go through the motions instinctually, knowing what I needed to do versus like what my crazy brain was like doing behind the scenes. So that was that relapse. And I'm really grateful for it because I was really sick still, even in sobriety. Like I put down the substances. Like, it just gives me the space to actually be able to really work on myself. And I didn't know what I didn't know the first time I had long-term sobriety. And I'm really grateful that my higher power presented me with the opportunity to re-surrender and start over because I feel much better this time.
That's awesome. And how long have you been sober now?
2 years.
That's awesome. Judy, do you have anything to say about that?
Well, I just wanted to add that during those years when Charlotte was in sober living in Portland, Maine, and where she is still now, I had really untangled myself from the situation. We had a loving relationship, but I was, and correct me if you saw it differently, Charlotte, but I was not managing her life. I wasn't telling her what I thought she should be doing. She made all her own decisions. She worked it out. She was able to connect with her resources and her people and find another place to be. And I would get a phone call and say, Mom, I just want to let you know I've been kicked out of the sober house and I put my things in black plastic garbage bags and I'm getting an Uber and don't worry, I'll be okay. And I was at a place in my own recovery where I was able to say, Charlotte, thank you so much for letting me know. I know you're going to be okay. I love you. And that's all.
Wow. Yeah. No, I would agree with that completely.
And that was different than the other times, so that made you feel better, or?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. So, alcoholism, there is a stigma around it in society, right? If I have a friend that has cancer, I can just tell you flat out, I've got a friend that has cancer, I'm going to go over and take her dinner tonight, and I feel really bad for her. But if I have not me, but if I was just a regular person out in the world and I had a friend who had alcoholism, I don't think I'd be starting like a meal train for her, right? It is a disease, and in my mind, it's not any different than cancer. But that's the stigma that goes with it, and I'm sure we've all experienced that as we go through. Has Maggie's or the 12 steps helped you guys with that in any way? Judy, did you want to start answer that question?
I had there was not alcoholism in my immediate family growing up, but there was alcoholism in the extended family. And I specifically remember as a young person, my father referring to the other alcoholics in the extended family, they were bad people, or that they were undisciplined, or it just instilled in me something at a very young age that alcoholism was something to be very much afraid of. That's what I had learned. That's what I had heard. So when it was clear that Charlotte was alcoholic, I wanted to keep that a secret. I didn't know who to talk to about it. And I didn't have initially anybody to talk to, because I felt then that it was definitely a reflection on me and that I had failed as a mom. It was because I sent her to school too soon, or put her on ADD meds, or was too strict, or was too permissive, or any number of things, when I thought that I would be viewed as a mother that really failed. Because that is still a stigma out there, and I even recently had heard from somebody had said to me, well, if she was my daughter, she wouldn't be alcoholic. So I learned so much about the disease through family support and through the 12 steps. I was able to, like I said in the beginning, have empathy for this disease and feel, sad, but that it was no judgment at all on who she was. And I felt like the disease had hijacked the daughter that I was given, and that I didn't recognize my daughter anymore. But I needed someone to tell me, your daughter is still there. What you're seeing playing out is not your daughter, it's the disease. And when I could separate the disease from my daughter, I could start focusing not just on the drinking, not just on the alcoholism, but I could begin to focus on the other parts, the other wonderful parts of my daughter, and elevate those parts. Alcoholism was just a piece of her, not the whole person. Yet I was hyper-focused on alcoholism, and I was not able to see the rest of the person. And it was through the 12 steps and family support that I was given my daughter back to me.
Oh, that is awesome. Yeah, I remember when the first time I went to visit my partner in Maggie's, and she met me at the door, and she had tears in her eyes. And I was like, are you okay? And she said, it's a disease. And I was like, what's a disease? And she said, it's alcoholism. It's a disease, and I'm not a terrible person. And she honestly didn't know that. And of course, I just went right into fix-it mode. I was thinking, well, if it's a disease, then we'll just get her better. But I can't even imagine what it would be like with the stigma on top of alcoholism, thinking what a terrible person you were and that you let your family down. And really, the story is you had a disease. Did you suffer from the same thing, Charlotte? And then did you have a revelation?
Yeah, for sure. It definitely takes a toll on you, because the disease manifests in our thinking, and our inner narrative is just naturally who we associate with who we are, like our ego, our self. That those are my thoughts, I'm thinking them. So when kind of the disease would manifest, or the obsession would come, and all that, and kind of affect my judgment, like I it was really, really hard. You could tell me till I'm blue in the face that, like, it's a thinking disease, and it is a disease, and you're not a terrible person. And like, I'd be like, yeah, I know, but like, it's really hard to, the shame, there's still a lot of a shame to work through, and I'm getting there. But it is hard for even me being an alcoholic to wrap my brain around. So I can only imagine, it must be really hard for other people who don't have the disease to wrap their head around it. It's really, really tricky when you're dealing with something that, manifests in our behaviors, and in lying and cheating and stealing and all these other things. As far as like the stigma goes, I am really grateful to be in a place that has just a lot of recovery.
That's great. Did you have anything to add, Judy?
No.
Okay. So the last question is, I'm going to start with you, Charlotte. If you met someone who asked you, like, what's this Maggie's about? Or should I go there? Or should I volunteer there? Whatever it is they're asking you, what would you say to them?
I would say absolutely. When I was there, the treatment I was given was really, really good. There were a lot of truth bombs dropped on me. They took us through the big book. It was a really, really, really good house, and a really, really good program. I think it's a testament that even though I didn't stay sober after Maggie's House, and years later, and still remember that place. And I literally remember faces. I don't remember the names, but I remember specific faces of women who helped me there, and things that were said, and there were seeds that were planted. And like, the fact that years later I can still kind of remember that says a lot. And the way that they have helped my mom is incredible.
Well, your mom is an incredible asset to Maggie's, and we're so lucky to have her in here, either on Zoom or in here in person, helping the families every week. Judy, what would you say to somebody?
I would say, if you have a loved one that is suffering from the disease of alcoholism, do not remain alone. Seek support, and seek a supportive community. And if you can come to the Magdalen House and be a part of family support, or get onto our Zoom calls, we understand your fear, and you can be with us, and we will support you, we will help you, we will be your friend, we will not judge, and we will teach you about the disease and some tools. The other thing that I just wanted to add, that it is a family disease, and we can become very, very sick. But if we are physically, mentally, and spiritually fit ourselves, we are much better equipped to be able to respond to an event of drinking in a composed, loving, and not harmful way. And I do believe that the most loving thing that you could do for your alcoholic loved one is to seek support for yourself, to learn about the disease, to accept them where they're at and how they are, and to let them know that you love them. And in the big book, on page 117, it says, regarding the 12 steps, it says, we urge you to try our program, for nothing will be so helpful to your loved one as the radically changed attitude toward them, which God will show you how to have.
That's awesome, Judy. I want to thank you both for being here. It was a real pleasure meeting you, Charlotte. I've heard a lot about you.
Thank you.
You guys, this has been our Hope for the Family podcast. My name is Laurie Evans, and thank you for listening.
This has been Hope for the Family, hosted by Laurie Evans and brought to you by the Magdalen House. I am Diana Miller, host of our Recover Ed podcast series. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Tune in every Wednesday for a new release from one of our 4 series. To learn more about the Magdalen House and the services we offer, please visit magdalenhouse.org or follow us on your favorite social media channels.